All right, we're back. That was so funny. Anyway, Bob, speaking of funny, I consider you a very funny person.
Thank you.
You, I know, had some experience. You've done a lot of different things. You have.
I
I mean,
have.
it seems like you've even played accordion on a recording, which is amazing.
Yeah. The gospel
So
accordion to Bob Rice. I was trying to alienate my entire fan base. It worked.
that's very funny. So,
Yeah.
example, I always have loved your gift of joy. You just have a great, easy smile. You make people feel relaxed. In my family, we do this thing where we honor people at their birthday. We say, the reason I love Sean is, and then you give some reasons. And if I were to honor you, I'd say one of the reasons I love Bob is because he just puts you at ease. He just immediately helps you to just be relaxed. And I feel like that's a very Jesus-like characteristic. I believe
Yeah.
that he was probably like that. He was magnetic. He was just somebody who, you were with him and you just felt like you were just who you should be. You didn't have any sort of fear if the person would react badly to you or sort of unexpectedly do something, obtuse or strange. You just had that
Yeah.
manner. But I think that's part of your gift of joy, which is that you are happy and you write happy music and you help people laugh. So I want to talk a little bit about your experience doing comedy. I know you did improv with like Wayne Brady and stuff like this. So tell me about that.
I did. Well, and you know what? I mean, in Galatians, it talks about how joy is a fruit of the Holy Spirit. And I would say 1,000%, because my childhood kind of sucked, to be
Mm,
honest. I was bullied horribly. In fact, they used to let me go home from school early so I wouldn't get bullied or beat up after school.
wow.
Now, in retrospect, I think, or maybe you could have talked to the bullies, but I guess
I know, right?
like as a parent now, I'm like, wait a second. There's got to be other ways to solve this than let my kid like run home in terror every day.
Right.
Um,
I had a very similar
and
experience actually. I got bullied a lot.
yeah, so I had a bit of a melancholy childhood. I was a really serious kid,
Wow.
and it wasn't until I got into high school and involved in a youth group and just fell more deeply in love with Jesus and my faith that, I mean, really, it's just a gift of joy. I mean, that's all I can describe it as, like a genuine freedom and gift of being joyful. And I can't tell you, I know when it wasn't, and I know when it was, and I can't tell you what happened in between the two. I mean, it was Jesus. I feel like that quote from The Chosen now. But
Do you
the
think you were naturally personality-wise joyful, but because of the experiences you had, it caused you to be melancholic, or do you think it's like a both and type of thing?
Yeah, I don't know if I have enough self-reflection to figure that out. I mean, yes, I think I might have always been joyful, and then certainly I had circumstances. But even when those circumstances disappeared, I moved to another school and things got better. I was still waiting for the shoe to drop. I was
Interesting.
still not confident that this was going to be able to hold out as it was. And again, it was that youth group experience. It was some of those upperclassmen taking me under their wing, um,
And then your
that
experience serving
really
God, yeah.
gave me a freedom. Yeah, and then just a deeper commitment to being a disciple of Jesus Christ. And suddenly, I was just dancing. I mean, I was just had music in my heart, and um, yeah, it's just like the soundtrack of my life changed in a positive way, and it became more upbeat, even though nothing exteriorly changed per se.
Hmm.
But I could feel the Lord at work in me, and I didn't have the language back then to say this is a fruit of the Holy Spirit. But looking back now, I can say, wow, I mean, that was just I opened my heart up to the Lord, and He gave me the joy and peace that He promises in the Gospels, and so I think that carried me a lot through
Right.
high school and certainly into college. I love, you talk about music as an emotion. I loved. I was also very active in theater because there's a similar manner in which being an actor you can elicit emotions from an audience. That
Hmm.
I mean, if you give a real powerful monologue, a tragic monologue, you could make them cry. If you give a great stand-up performance, you can make them laugh. And I think I was always just fascinated by that.
Yeah, the
Like,
power of that. Yeah.
yeah, the power of that. And I find the power of laughter, it's such a weird concept. Like
It is another thing that's like music. It's
it
very
is, it
powerful.
is. And it like what is, like there's a I again, I'm not smart enough to go deep into it, but like our body, like laughter just is funny. Like
Yeah.
it's this weird,
It's
you
its
can't,
own.
just like you can't stop feeling the music. Like if somebody says something really funny, you just make this weird noise, like
Yeah.
and then you just kind of, you fall over and
And
you
it's
sometimes you
universal.
just
Like
can't stop.
almost everyone in the room will feel it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We would talk about that in youth ministry, particularly at the conferences. We try to do silly things because we felt like if everybody in the room can sing together and if everybody in the room can laugh together,
Yeah.
I mean, again, that's another vulnerability. Like you said, like singing, it's vulnerable to sing, but if everybody's singing, then now I can sing and feel okay with it.
There's a unity
Laugh,
there.
anytime you laugh, it's kind of just always embarrassing. Nobody ever has like a handsome laugh, like,
I don't know, Bob.
right?
I have a pretty good laugh.
I mean, you do. I mean, but most people aren't gifted like that.
So
And
tell me
so,
about your work in comedy, though. I want to hear about a little bit about that.
right. So I was a theater major in college, and I had friends that worked at an improv comedy club,
Okay.
and I started working there doing lights and sound because I never actually thought I could be as funny as the people on stage.
Okay.
And kind of like out of a movie or a sitcom, one day they didn't have enough actors to be on stage, and
Wow.
they physically dragged me on stage, and I thought, I don't want to be here, this isn't going to go well, and they just
They
said, we
must have
got
known
you.
you had something there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they knew I was a theater major. They just said, like, if you could just stand, smile, ask if a place where two people might meet, and then just be like a background character, we'll just
Okay.
carry you through it. And I was
Okay.
like, okay, I guess I can survive one show. It was like 3 nights, three
Okay.
shows a night kind of thing.
Okay.
I said, I can survive a show, and then somebody else can show up and take over. And it was just an anointing. Like, I wasn't a background character. Like, I was right out front, getting standing ovations. I thought at
You
the end of
loved
that,
it.
like, well, that was fun. And then I started heading back to my sound booth, and they grabbed me. They're like,
Oh, no, 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 no,
you're
no.
just going to stay on stage. And it was a really great experience. This was at SAC Theater Comedy Labs in Orlando, Florida. And
Okay.
yeah, right. Wayne Brady was there at the time. Jonathan Mangum. There's a lot of guys I've seen since on TV or doing other things. And I didn't know the craft. I was very up and down with it. Like when I was on, I was really on. And when I was not on, I was really, really off. And I
Oh, no.
found that the folks that could do it great were either great or they were good, but they
Or
were
they worked
never
really hard, I'm sure,
bad.
too.
Yeah, right. And so I actually started kind of retrofitting. I started taking classes to figure out how did I get to those great moments. And it was actually in the midst of that process when I came up to I was asked to speak at a Steubenville youth conference. I never heard of it in my life, but they wanted me to do some kind of comedy shticky stuff up there.
Yeah.
So that was, my first role at a Steubenville youth conference was doing comedy parts.
Did
And
you write the skits?
yeah,
You wrote those skits,
yeah,
like the parakeet and all that stuff.
right, yeah, all those dumb, yeah,
I
that
have
was
to
me.
say, I'm just going to say this for the record, for all of you Steubenville East people out there that, miss the good old days. I loved that. I loved it. I thought
We had a lot of
for
fun.
the people who have no idea what I'm talking about, Bob and I were both involved in this youth conference thing. So we talk a lot about that stuff. And way back when we started doing it, they would start off the conference, everyone's sitting in the crowd and, there's just a general bustle. And then all of a sudden these people start walking on the stage and they just start doing funny things. And it was just such a great warm up because it
Yeah,
just put people at ease immediately. And it was some of the stuff was ridiculous. And a lot of the stuff that you
all
did,
of the stuff
at
was
least
ridiculous.
some of the stuff you did, like with Bob Lesniewski, who's a good friend of ours,
Right,
you guys were like many times I was doing music and you were over there doing comedy, and it was
right.
so much fun. And they all, they had the theme song, they had like the skits and the sketches, and they've got away from that, which is whatever. It is what
Yep.
it is. But the fact is, I felt like that was one of the best elements of the entire experience because you really open people up. And the more you can open people up, right, the more they're
Yeah.
going to experience something else. If God is, not I shouldn't say if God is, when God is acting in their lives, when you're open to it, it can be really powerful. So I just felt like that was so great. So tell me
And in the
about like
days,
making those sketches. I mean, you made all the like the. I'm thinking about the year of Out of the Jungle, which was about the Holy Spirit,
oh right,
and it was
yeah,
like it was like this kind
like
of
the
jungle.
Tarzan
Like,
theme
Out of
and
the Jungle means like from Welcome to the Jungle, like from Guns N' Roses, right? Is that right?
yeah, but
Anyway,
a more Yeah, but
There was
not
like a
"You're
twist on
gonna
that, right?
die." That we didn't do that part of it.
Anyway, tell me about the skits and stuff that you did. Some of the stuff. Do you have any good memories of those skits? Like things that
Well,
you
I remember doing them and having a blast with them. For the listeners out there, this was like late '90s, early zeros, and so it was pre internet streaming, pre
yeah,
YouTube.
pre
And
meme.
so, yeah, so entertainment was live, and there was a joy to that. Like, sadly, I think one of the reasons why we don't do that so much today is you pick up your phone and you can quickly get 10 of the greatest comedians of all time,
Yep.
and well, we can't do anything on stage that remotely will compete with
But
that.
back then
But
they didn't have that. They
but
didn't have
back then in the day, it was just they were so excited to see a live show
it was
or a
us, the
live skit. I
dinosaurs,
mean, it was
and the
kind of
live
like
show.
Saturday Night Live
Yep.
at a conference, and
Yep.
that was a real lot of fun. But you're right. For us, it was comedy that was meant to open up hearts. And I think what I liked, our approach at the conferences, or at least my approach, and you mentioned Bob Lesneski. He and I toured for a number of years with the Bob and Bob show, we
Oh
called it,
yeah.
doing improv
Love that. I
comedy.
wanted to talk about another moment in that show. Like when you did
Yeah.
the cereal. Oh my God, that was so funny. You're at a
I
conference.
think
You're
that
at a
video is
conference,
still
and
out
he
there somewhere
literally
on
there
the
was some
internet.
kind of song about cereal, and they just open up boxes of cereal, and they just start spraying cereal everywhere.
And kids just were going
They
nuts.
were
It was a lot of fun.
crazy. It was so funny, but I'm sure the organizers did not love that.
Yeah, we got some comments afterwards. Please don't ever do that again. We said, okay, thank you.
You should. I
Yeah.
don't know if you ever
Nope.
followed those comments,
Note
but that was
taken.
awesome.
Yeah,
That was like a
exactly.
moment where I was like, I can't believe they're doing this. Sorry, I'm like stealing all of your stories. Please.
No, they're great. It's actually really fun to hear somebody else tell them because I don't. My memory's so weird about I have a very different
Tell me about the
perspective on
cereal
like
song.
that.
What was that? What was that whole thing? Do you remember the?
What was that? The Serial song was a parody on the Macy Gray song.
Try to
That is
say
good
goodbye,
goodbye.
but I choke.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, I
That's
am
right. I do
cuckoo
remember
for
that.
Cocoa Krispies is how we ended up writing it. And again, that was when Weird Al was popular. I'd like to think he's always popular. So doing a parody song was a lot of fun. But what people found interesting, and I think this also ties into music,
Okay.
was like when we traveled and did the show, we were listed as, we're obviously Catholic
Yeah.
doing improv. And so I remember we went and did an event in Baltimore, right? And we did it, and it went great. And at the end, but then we did this show, and then at the end we'd have like a brief testimony of our lives and the joy that comes from Jesus. But we just left it at that.
Mhm.
And I remember one time we had an organizer that came up and was a little bit frustrated, like, "That's it? Like that's all you're saying about Jesus?" And I said, "Yeah." Like, and he thought like all of our improv skits should have some like connection
Like a
to
direct connection
Jesus
to yeah.
or the resurrection, like everything.
Theological,
And I
some
feel like
theological
sometimes in,
strain.
in
Yeah.
Christianity, yeah, we feel like everything has to have a very serious message, or even just a message at all. And it was like, no, look, first of all, it's a Saturday afternoon, bro. Like, have
I
low
know, right?
expectations.
They're not going there.
we brought the energy, we brought the laughter, we shared our witness, and then we always kind of recognized that what we did was a puzzle piece, right? If they've had a great time this afternoon, then when they come back tonight,
They're gonna
they're going
have.
to be really open to whoever that keynote speaker is or whatever that message is. I would say a similar thing even as sometimes in the conferences. I didn't mind playing some secular music,
Yeah.
depending on
Yep.
my role as a musician right now. What's the goal? Well, if it's worship, before adoration, no, I'm not going to play Lean on Me. But if it's gathering music and we're just trying to get them together, then yeah, that's great. And sometimes people will be like, well, that's a secular song. It's like, it's music and it's beautiful and it works for the emotion we're trying to get it to. And I think sometimes
Yeah.
people overly try to baptize everything. Whereas I think just like in
Yeah.
nature,
Well,
nature is
the beauty
beautiful,
of God is the human being fully alive.
Yeah, exactly.
In other words, if a human being is just being beautiful, let's say being really funny, I mean, that's a certain type of beauty that everyone sort of is very attracted to. I mean, think about it.
Right.
There's this saying about, women, they like men that are funny or something like this. Like if he could be really not that good looking, but if he's funny, it'll work. But I mean,
Yeah.
this idea that just a human being being a human being themselves,
Right.
being alive, that is probably much more convincing of the background where you came from than a direct theological statement, sort of trying to sort of nail things down. This is a whole podcast actually about this. I haven't done it yet, but I've been thinking a lot about this. So this idea that as Christians, we sometimes have this idea that we have to sort of box things in order to experience them, right? And
Yeah.
the idea that sometimes just letting things hit you the way they are and just bringing all of reality in a certain sense, at least this is my, belief, I'm sure we share, that all of reality is God. God is speaking to us throughout all of reality. And so whatever we're experiencing, we can take into ourselves and sort of process it. If we have that heart that's directed towards God, it can sort of bring it up, and
Yeah.
you can bring some truth out of it. So just, for using your experience there as an example, is like, that's it. Well, that's a lot. I'm a Catholic comedian. There you go. I mean, that's enough, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there you go. Because we somehow in our church, in our faith, we have this idea that we, like you said, we should be son of serious. And it's like, I don't want to join. If I was outside, why would I want to join let's all together and be very serious together. Let's
Yeah. I mean, there's moments where
not
that's
conforming to
appropriate, but
society.
you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I think some people think that the more serious you are, the more holy you are, and um, and yeah, the fruit of the spirit is joy. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
that's
it's the saints are joyful in spite of suffering, not because of suffering. They don't,
right.
I don't think any saint would say, "Oh, I love to suffer." No, they would never say that. Of course not.
Right.
That'd be strange.
Yeah.
But to say, even though I'm going through a lot right now, I'm so happy. I'm just so fulfilled in my life because of this relationship I have with the living God, this personal God that I'm connected with.
Yeah, and especially, like, yeah, and for me, and probably similar to you and many of our listeners, if I'm really feeling down, if I just put headphones on and just listen to some upbeat songs of praise, I mean, that just reconnects me to whatever I'm depressed about is temporary because it's of this world, but I'm created for eternity. And the praise of eternity really gets me right back to,
Uh,
my eyes are fixed on heavenly things. If our eyes are fixed on earthly things, there's definitely some beauty, but there's also definitely mess. There's some
yeah,
great examples of holiness, and then there's a lot of great examples of sin.
yeah,
And when we keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, and I think music is kind of an on ramp,
yeah.
that lets us kind of
Well
get
said.
our mind and soul back to what we're made for and who loves us. Then that gives us that 30,000-foot view of our life, and things just fall more into perspective. And I can say,
Mm.
okay, this thing at work, it still sucks, but it's just a thing.
You are
It's just
hitting
a thing.
you're hitting so hard on something I was just talking about in my last episode. So I'm so excited
Nice.
God is working. It's
Yeah.
exactly what it's like, that music can do that. I have this comment in my first episode. I said, who knew a song could do all that,
Mm.
but it can. It can do all that. I hate to cut you off. I didn't mean to, but we have to wrap things up. And I wanted to
Oh
ask
yeah.
you real quick, what, if you had to point to, now this is kind of a dangerous question, but what is like one of the most powerful worship songs or songs that just you can go back to over and over
Mm.
again, and it still helps you pray no matter what. Everyone has these, I think, that are into this kind of this kind of experience and music and
Right.
everything. So just tell me, give me a couple titles there. Come on, give me some because we have
So
to wrap
the
things up.
the one that jumps out to me is a song called "The Great I Am"
Wow, I've
by
sung that song.
Jared Anderson, and I would say
All
it
the
hits me actually
people.
because I remember when I played it at a conference. I mean, so for me, a lot of the music that I think of is not so much my experience listening, but my experience playing it. And
Okay.
I remember playing that song, and like the roof opens up. I mean,
Oh,
and the heavens. It's just. I mean that. That's just yeah. I mean, I
wow,
just
great
imagine
one.
myself singing that song and playing that
Yeah,
song.
it's a great song. I've heard.
Another
It's a great opening too. I love the opening of that song. It's great.
Oh, my goodness, it's so good. Another one, and again, these are kind of older songs, but again, they're rooted in my memories. Is "Your Love"? Is it? Oh
Your love is
gosh, I can't
amazing.
remember how it goes. No, your love never change, never give up, never runs out on me. Your
Oh yeah,
love
yeah. It's
never
called
fades,
One
never
Thing
gives
Remains.
up.
One Thing
Yeah, I
Remains.
knew it was something weird. One thing remains, right? So, yeah, one thing remains is another great song
Never
that,
runs out on me. Yeah.
yeah, it's so beautiful. I love "Reckless Love." I know that's a more modern song, but that's just really, really cool.
It's a great
Um,
song. Yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot of good ones.
yeah,
It's gotten a lot better, hasn't it? It really has.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
it really
music
has.
is there's so many different Christian churches and things have just sort of
Hmm.
really developed talent and developed writing, and so the music is just so well written. Not and it's
Yeah,
lyrical. I love what I maybe I should finish up with it. I love that you said there's no other genre of music that is based on lyrics instead of style. It's
yeah,
lyrically based, the content of what you're saying. And I think that's why it's so powerful. I mean, I don't know. You're right. I can't think of any other genre of music that's based, it's defined by the way the lyrics are expressed.
yeah.
But yeah, that means it becomes a prayer, right?
Right. Yeah, that means there's an intentionality that it's not just, and maybe other music might do this, it's not just going for a thoughtless emotion, which can take you
Anywhere. Yeah.
wherever it goes.
Yeah.
Like it's an emotion that's leading a thought. I mean, it really is the heart and the head combined that you're able to now, I feel this joy, but why do I feel this joy? I'm singing about the joy of the Lord, or I'm feeling this sense of repentance. Why? Because I'm singing songs, have mercy on me, O Lord, with
Yeah.
a minor key. And those it's really doing a beautiful job of connecting our intellect with the emotion. And I think sometimes other music styles might just, it's just emotion, doesn't matter where it takes you as long as you feel it. That's the important thing. And for the Christian song, it's, well, I don't just want to feel, I want to feel, but I want to be connected to the God who reveals himself to us.
Right.
And those are the words that really get us there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's um it's a deliberate reminding of ourselves of what we believe. It's like
Mm,
clamping down on something that we already know and it's like processing it. I don't know if that's a terrible way to say it, but I know that I think Thomas Aquinas says something like that, like just chewing over something, like every time we sing these songs, it's like we reaffirm in ourselves,
yeah,
remind ourselves of what we already know. It's interesting because we have to do that a lot. Commercials, there you go, example.
yeah.
So, Bob, wow, this has been such a blessing. I feel like we hit like 5 topics that each of those we could do a whole podcast about. So maybe I could have you back at some point and talk
I'd
some more
love to.
about it. Because I think when you've done music like you and I have done, like when you perform it, like you said, you lead people in prayer, there's a lot of insights that you get about how it works. And you've been so delightful and, as always, funny, hilarious, and joyful. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Martin.
What a blessing to have Bob Rice on the program. Thanks so much for staying with us and listening through all of that. So many great memories, so many great insights about music. I feel like, some of these themes that we've been talking about in the other episodes are coming up again, and that just makes me really happy. It makes me feel like it's all connected. So thanks again for being part of this podcast. If you like the podcast, please rate, subscribe, comment. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe on there, or put some comments down there. You can find Bob Rice's music just by searching his name, Bob Rice, and on Spotify or any of the other music platforms, Apple Music or Amazon or Pandora, whatever music service you use. But yeah, check out his music, his very joyful, good stuff. And until next time, keep listening and keep praying, and we'll see you soon.